안녕하세요.
This is Seoul, South Korea. Seoul is a vibrant and dynamic city, and it's got everything from historic palaces to busy markets with delicious street food and unique cafes. Some people might even say Seoul has a lot of soul. Let's check out the top 8 things you should do in Seoul. Be sure to watch to the end if North Korea piques your interest. Coming in at number 8, we have the Namsen Seoul Tower for panoramic views of the city. Yes, this is a typical tourist attraction, but as a tourist, I really liked it. It's got beautiful sunset views, and I think it's a great way to get a bird's eye view of the city. You can either take the cable car or you can even hike up, but keep in mind that the hiking trails are steep and a bit difficult. It's a popular date night spot for locals, and lots of couples leave love locks here. At number 7, we have the Korean Folk Village, which is kind of like a historical and educational amusement park combined with a museum. It may seem like a tourist trap, but a lot of Koreans enjoy coming here, and you can learn about the history of Korean culture and traditions. For example, this display shows how they make soybean paste in these large pots. This is the village prayer tree, which all Korean villages had back in the day. And these totem poles, known as village guardians, were traditionally placed at the edges of villages to mark village boundaries and frighten away demons. There are also different performances throughout the park. This one showed a traditional Korean wedding ceremony, which was really interesting. Sometimes there are special performances for holidays or special events, so be sure to check their website for their performance guide. And if you're lucky, you might even catch the horse riding show with equestrian stunts. I thought this dance was really cool, and I love the traditional outfits. There are also interactive cultural displays, such as this one, which is what they used to do for ancient punishment. There's also an area with amusement park rides, a carousel, a spooky haunted house, and a cute but slow train ride overlooking the amusement park. It's a great place to spend a day to unwind and enjoy some greenery, or just to get out of the hustle of the city. Even this river was so peaceful, and I love the tranquility. It's located just outside of Seoul, so this would make for a good day trip. You should plan to spend a minimum of 4 hours here just exploring, but there's so much to see that you could easily spend the whole day here since the grounds are pretty big. As a first-timer to the country, I thought this park was a really cool snapshot of Korea's culture and history, and I felt like I learned a lot. Coming in at number 6, we have the food, and of course, food deserves its own category. There's so much delicious food in Seoul, you definitely have to try the Korean street food. I had to try this fluffy egg bread, which was really popular. I also had some tempura, and I loved this super tall soft-serve ice cream cone. But my favorite was this grilled pen shell with cheese. So good. There was also Korean fried chicken, as well as an assortment of skewers of fish cake, sausage, rice cake, and skewers of baked cheese. And they love cheese on their food here, so good luck if you're lactose intolerant. And don't forget, you can't leave Seoul without trying the Korean barbecue here. The meat was so tender and juicy, and honestly so much better than the Korean barbecue back home. I love that the staff will barbecue and cut it for you, because back home, we do have to cook it ourselves, even though that is part of the fun of the experience. There are so many other things that I would have loved to try but didn't get a chance. Guess that just means I'll have to go back. Further on the topic of food, that brings us to number 5, the cafes in Seoul. Cafe culture in Seoul is next level. There are tons of cafes with different themes you can check out. My favorite was the speakeasy style vending machine cafe hidden behind an unassuming pink vending machine door, which has unfortunately now been closed down. The desserts were so pretty. We got this mermaid tail cupcake, which was really unique and tasted pretty good, but super sweet. We had a whole day set aside just to check out cafes, which in retrospect, I think we could have spaced it out a bit better to do one cafe a day instead of exploring multiple cafes in one day, since you'll usually have to order a snack or drink at each cafe, and that's a lot of lattes in a day. Cafes can have a random theme, like this pink pool cafe, which is just as it sounds, it's pink themed with a random pool in it. The desserts looked really pretty, but we didn't try any of them. There are cafes with animals, like this dog cafe.
Who's a good boy?
Or there are other cafes with unique animals, like meerkats or even sheep. But that does bring about the ethics and morality of animal cafes, which is a whole nother conversation for another time. For all you Potterheads, you can stop by this multi-floor Harry Potter cafe where each floor has a different theme. There is even a platform 9 3/4 outside of the cafe. I also really liked this 2D cafe, which was really cool and unique. It felt like we were stepping into a cartoon. Another unique cafe that I would check out next time is this one where everything is poop-shaped and drinks are served in a mini toilet mug. Or you can check out Banana Tree Cafe, where your cake is served in a plant pot and your spoon looks like a tiny shovel. There are so many gems that you can stumble across just from exploring the streets of Seoul. Number 4, renting a hanbok. My absolute favorite part of the trip was renting a hanbok and exploring the city. The hanbok is the traditional Korean attire, and I felt like a princess wearing this beautiful dress. I was a bit concerned that wearing a hanbok might be offensive or considered cultural appropriation, but that didn't seem to be the case in Seoul. In fact, they more so saw it as an appreciation for their culture. Let me know what you think in the comments. Would you wear a hanbok, or do you think it's cultural appropriation? This was such a fun and unique experience, and I personally felt that it was a great way to fully embrace and appreciate the traditional Korean culture, and I loved how beautiful I felt wearing the hanbok. There are rental shops all over the city, but I would recommend that you make a reservation online as it guarantees your rental. Advanced reservations also tend to be discounted. There are lots of colors and designs to choose from, but I would recommend that you make your reservation for when the shop opens so that you have more options to choose from. On average, you can expect to pay around 15,000 to 30,000 Korean won for a basic rental. Staff there will assist you with putting on the outfit, and most shops have free hair braiding and styling available for women. You can also rent accessories such as hair clips, hats, bags, or even shoes, but your dress covers your shoes most of the time, so I would just say wear comfortable sneakers since you'll be walking lots. Do note that most rental shops require a passport to be left as a deposit. Pro tip, wearing a hanbok also gives you free or discounted entry into palaces. Once you've got your hanbok, head over to Bukchon Hanok village, which is number 3 on the list. And I'm so sorry for my mispronunciation. It's the perfect place to get some pictures in the traditional attire. The village is kind of like a museum with traditional Korean houses known as Hanoks, which date back to the Joseon dynasty. Walking through these charming alleyways in a hanbok felt like I was in a K-drama. Where's my oppa? The village is situated right between 2 palaces, so after the village you can head over to one of the palaces. There are 5 grand palaces in Seoul, and the palaces are all close to one another and pretty similar in their architecture, so you can visit any of them. Which leads us to number 2, the Gyeongbokgung Palace. This palace was just a short walk away from the village. If you only have time to see one palace, I would suggest this one as it's the biggest and most elaborate of the 5, and we loved it. The palace grounds were huge and maze-like. We definitely got lost walking around. It was like taking a step back in time with the beautiful architecture and gardens, and you can even watch the ceremonial changing of the royal guard. I felt like a princess walking around and exploring the courtyards in a hanbok. Wearing a traditional Korean dress was so fun, and I felt that it allowed us to appreciate the beauty of the outfit and the culture. Keep in mind that most palaces and city highlights are closed on Tuesdays. And finally, at number 1 is probably the most interesting thing I did in Korea, which was visit the Korean Demilitarized Military Zone, also known as the DMZ. The DMZ is a 250-kilometer strip of land running across the Korean peninsula that serves as a buffer zone or border between North and South Korea. You can join one of the many tours for a day trip that depart from central Seoul. It's one of the world's most closely guarded borders, but for those that are curious, you can catch a glimpse into North Korea through the binoculars on the top of the observatory. We learned about the history of the Korean War and the Cold War, and we visited the Freedom Bridge, Imjinggak Park, and the 3rd Infiltration Tunnel, which was actually originally dug by North Korean soldiers. If you get claustrophobic or if you're tall, I would advise that you skip walking through the 73-meter deep tunnel, otherwise you'll find out why they give you a hard hat. Fun fact, since 1974, 4 tunnels have been found running under the DMZ, which were dug up by North Koreans so that their army could launch a surprise attack. The North Koreans painted the rocks black so that they could claim it was a coal mine. We also checked out Dorasan Station. Dorasan Station connects South Korea to North Korea by train, but it's currently not in service. The station is now largely symbolic of the hope for the eventual Korean reunification. It's wild to be in the DMZ and to see and be so close to North Korea. It's definitely not your typical vacation attraction. If you wanted to take it a step further, you could even step into North Korea by visiting the Joint Security Area, the JSA, which is jointly policed by the North and South. It's sometimes referred to as the Peace or Truce Village. Would you visit the Joint Security Area? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video and found some inspiration for your next trip to Seoul. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment below with your favorite K-drama. See you next time. Bye!